to Cult Macabre, a phantasmagoric guide to pop culture's dark side. I'm Lee.
And I'm Richie.
And today we are talking about the 1995 movie Mortal Kombat, based on the video game franchise by Ed Boon and John Tobias. This franchise has spanned decades at this point. I personally have played a few of these games. What about you, Richie?
I grew up on these games. Like, I vividly remember the Circle K near my house having the original arcade machine, like from the first one.
I had a much later introduction to the franchise. My very first Mortal Kombat game was Mortal Kombat 10.
Holy shit.
Yeah, dude. I saw the movie as a child when it was new and loved it immensely. My sisters and I would watch this shit all the time. My dad loved it. He even had the Black Dragon tattoo on his body. He loved it that much, yeah. But I did not touch any of the video games until 10 came out.
I was there from the arcade game and then it being ported to home consoles and the entire like Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis version, because like the Sega Genesis version had blood in it and the Super Nintendo version omitted it for the most part until like a few games later when they decided, oh, it's okay.
It had no blood graphics?
No, because that was the time when like Nintendo was like, no, we're the family console. We can't be having this kind of stuff on our consoles.
No mature content,
and
yeah.
Sega Genesis was like, fuck that, dude. Here. Put it all over that place. Like, and it was great because I had both consoles. So anytime I rented or bought any of these games, like that's where I got it, was for Sega Genesis. And I had the biggest blast finding out this movie was coming out. And you got to remember out there, everybody, this is back in the day when you had to read about stuff like this in magazines, or you just found out when a trailer hit theaters or TV screens at your house. We had no idea. I mean, I'm sure there were people that knew if they were reading gaming magazines, like, oh, there's a movie getting made, but it wasn't like prevalent information how we have it at the literal tips of our fingers nowadays, just by looking on our phones or looking on our laptops. It's right there. News. There's hardly a movie that gets made in secret and actually lasts as a secret until a trailer is released.
Right.
But the hype for this movie was unbelievable, and it took all 90s kids by storm. Hi, I'm 90s kids.
I am also 90s kids. But yeah, it was fantastic. I remember enjoying it a lot. I didn't have the pleasure of seeing it on the big screen like you did. That must have been quite a cool experience.
Yes, it was, because the theater that I saw it in is now a church.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's what I think is hilarious. I've had a couple of experiences where I have seen shit that parents, well, most parents, like my parents were pretty cool and they took me to see cool shit like this. But I remember seeing like a couple of things where I'm like, man, this is fucking awesome. And then later those venues became churches. And I was like, oh my God, I saw some like either really like blasphemous shit here or some really like, you know, pseudo satanic kind of bullshit. You know, because back then people were like, oh my God, Shang Tsung and like all the evil blood and shit happening in the games. And I'm like, come on, man, you motherfuckers had RoboCop in the 80s. We can't have Mortal Kombat in the 90s. Kiss my ass.
Well, this particular film is based off the original Mortal Kombat, which came out in 1992. And the movie opens up on a sequence with Shang Tsung. And he is killing a young man, which jolts another guy awake. And we learn that this is Liu Kang, who is a descendant of Kung Lao, who is a character from the game.
Yeah, but the thing is like Kung Lao is a lot. That's some of the differences between the game and this is that Kung Lao is actually like alive at the same time that Liu Kang is in the video game. So they swapped some shit around just to work that name into the movie.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the case with this movie is that they worked a few things in there, just kind of shoehorn like references and stuff. Because even though it is based on the game of the same name, like there's some differences here. Like we don't get like traditional tournament style stuff. We just get a bunch of random fights featuring some of these characters having more than one fight, because the tournament is mentioned, but there's no brackets. There's no like, oh, you have to fight this person and then you fight this like it's not even like that. It's one of my only complaints about the movie. Other than that, I think this movie still holds up as far as like action goes, because this is like peak 90s kung fu martial arts kind of shit as far as mainstream goes, because like Jackie Chan was blowing up around the same time because Rumble in the Bronx had either just come out or was about to come out and take us by storm here. Because stuff like this was huge in like Hong Kong and Japan and, you know, all these countries that featured martial arts stuff. Like, so between this and then Street Fighter, we had like Street Fighter as a live action movie was like a send up of 80s action. And this to me is a send up of like the like 70s and 80s martial arts films, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that was like super praised about this film in particular was the fight choreography and the fight sequences. They did a fantastic job with it. All of them are very engaging and very interesting to watch, despite some oddities that don't quite match up with like the game and whatnot as far as characters and powers go.
Yeah, but to double back on your point you were making earlier, his Liu Kang awakens from a dream because he finds out via a telegram. Like, it's a really cold way to find out this kind of shit, but like your brother, like it kind of just reads like brother is dead, return to Hong Kong or some shit, and like it's his brother Chan who gets killed fighting Shang Tsung, trying to represent the Temple of Light, in China. And this is where we kind of find out Liu Kang abandoned this, temple thing and left after this happened because he's very like distraught over it. But when he finds out the killer is going to be in this tournament, that's his whole reasoning for it. But we quickly get introduced to our main three people because in the video game, like your good guys, air quote, your good guys were Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage and Liu Kang. Although we didn't really know, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't really read into the game, you don't know who's who and who's what, but it's pretty apparent. Like, they set it up pretty quickly.
I feel like they're pretty clear about it. The storyline is pretty straightforward. All these characters have their own individual reasons for getting sucked into the tournament, whether willingly or not. And the god of lightning, which is Raiden, basically wants all three of these earthlings to work together.
Yeah, because in the game and in this movie, basically, if Shang Tsung, who represents Outworld, if Outworld wins 10 Mortal Kombat tournaments in a row, they assume control of pretty much everything. And Raiden is kind of like how do we put this? He's like the checks and balances god here because he is a god of, Earthrealm. Like, he's a defender of Earthrealm. And then Shang Tsung is like kind of like the head of Outworld, and he answers only to Shao Kahn, who, we get introduced to way after the fact in this movie. But you got to think, the first two video games were out by this time, and the third one was being developed. So we still actually had, developing characters as this movie is being released. So there's a lot of stuff that if you've seen this movie, like after you've played any of this stuff, some of it may or may not make sense, but it's been 31 years. I think you all have seen this fucking movie.
Yeah, chances are high. It's got quite a cult following as far as that goes, even at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it was a box office success. Like, let's be honest, it made $122.2 million on a $20 million budget, which was fucking insane back in 1995, considering, $20 million back at that time was still a lot of money to be spending on a film. In fact, I believe at one point they went over the budget, but not by very much. But I know Paul W.S. Anderson, who has done a lot of films like this since, who is most notably the Resident Evil franchise. It's hard to think that he's been so hit or miss with some of his movies. This was, in my opinion, again, I know there's some people out there that actually don't like this movie. To me, it was a hit for him. Like, it was really good. The second one, not so much. We're
not going to talk about that.
But this one was pretty good, all things considered. So, I don't want to go beat by beat on this movie. I think this is a really good broad discussion piece here because, like, these characters are actually very entertaining. I think it's funny that, like, although Liu Kang is supposed to be the Bruce Lee type character, he kind of plays like the straight man here to, like, Johnny Cage's sarcasm and jokes. And then on top of which, Johnny Cage is the ass of every joke that Sonya Blade has to throw at him, and of course she's hunting Kano. They all have their reasons for being there. Johnny Cage wants to prove he's not a fake because he's a movie star that gets constantly told that he's a fake fighter and he's not a real martial artist and all this stuff. And Sonya Blade is tracking a serial killer that she's been hunting with her partner Jax. She's just been tracking him to this tournament, and Liu Kang is avenging the death of his brother. So they all have reasons for being there, but Raiden sees something in all three of them and predicts that one of them will be the winner of this tournament. The only problem that I have in some of the character setup is, like, is Scorpion and Sub-Zero like, I love their inclusion here, but I didn't like that they made them some bitches in this movie, if I'm being honest. They made them just some kind of secondary, like, muscle for Shang Tsung, where he's like, these are my slaves under my power. They were once mortal enemies, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, no. If you watch almost any Mortal Kombat adaptation, like, Scorpion is one of, like, the main fucking characters, because he's like an anti-hero, basically.
Right. And I don't know about you, but I feel like that was made much more clear in the newer Mortal Kombat movie and much better done, for sure. And I wish we could have had a little bit more of that. They do try to just excuse it away with that little line to make the audience accept it. And, you know, I guess it works for their purpose. And they do still look pretty cool. I remember watching it as a kid and be like, all these characters are still pretty fucking badass.
Oh, yeah. I'm not talking about, like, the abilities, like, being shown on screen or anything like that. It's
Sure.
I hate that, like, they didn't have them fully fleshed out.
There was no personality there.
No, because Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Reptile are all like this. Like in the game, they're the same character morph, but different colors. Like you have like a green, a yellow, and a blue satchel over all their stuff. And while we're on that subject, let's talk about the incarnation of Reptile in this.
Oh, man. I had words for this immediately when we started our rewatch the movie. Reptile was actually one of my favorite characters to play as in the game, and I very much like 10's iteration of Reptile because I have retroactively gone back and looked at some of the older ones, and it's my favorite go at it. I remember watching the movie after with that knowledge and being like, oh, they really did Reptile kind of dirty in this one. He's mostly used as a minion to Shang Tsung. He tells him to like watch over Katana and make sure she can't leave the castle to like go and work with Liu Kang and that group. And then at one point there is a really good fight sequence with Reptile where he gets knocked into a statue and bonds with it and becomes that like human version of him as opposed to anything anthropomorphic. And that fight sequence is really good up until Liu Kang does like 10 million air kicks all the way across an entire building. It's not bad, all things considered. It just feels like 90s action campy shit, you know what I mean?
That's one of his moves in the game.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
sure.
That's the thing. It's a bicycle kick, and he does in the game. And the only excuse that I would make for it is that it's an Outworld, and you can do anything different in out because it's Outworld.
Yeah,
you know?
sure. There's different rules.
That's the way that my brain like kind of canoned that, you know, in the film.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like they take this rickety ass boat to this island, and I think some of the interactions with the characters here are fucking hysterical. Like Johnny Cage rolls up, right, and he's got all these like suitcases and luggage, and he sees Liu Kang, and he's just like, "Hey man, you want to load my bags? Like, you want to carry my bags on this ship?" And Liu Kang just looks at him, he's like, "You want me to carry your luggage?" And he's like, "Yeah, I pay money, you carry the luggage. Or do you have a problem understanding that?" And he's like, "No," takes the money. He's like, "I got it." And just dunks one of his fucking suitcases right in the goddamn water and just like, and walks off. And Johnny's just like, thank God I didn't ask him to park the car.
I love that the luggage thing is like a reoccurring joke too. Even after they get to the island, you see Johnny struggling with bags of luggage. He like trips coming out of the boat and just soaks his entire self. And then he's dragging all these suitcases up this enormous set of stairs. I mean, so high that you're up through the clouds at that point, and you just see him almost trip and a bunch of luggage just starts falling down these stairs like a fucked up slinky.
I love it. He needs some help with those.
Yeah, it's great.
And then by the time they make it to the opening ceremony dinner, he's got nothing. Like, bro only has like the clothing on his body and a $500 pair of sunglasses.
And he cherishes the fuck out of those sunglasses.
Ray-Bans. Wouldn't you?
I do love that they poke fun at him for being vain pretty much the entire time. It suits him.
Yeah, it really does. And the only other, I think the only other issues I really have, yes, I'm getting these out of the way, obviously, is the overusage of some of the video game taglines. Like whenever Shang Tsung says flawless victory, says it a lot for victories that are absolutely not flawless.
It's not accurate, god damn it.
And then the whole finish him, or like the shit like that, which I get. It's like fan service at that point.
Your soul is mine.
I mean, that's kind of his deal. That's his
Yeah.
thing. But when he sits there and he's like, after he's done, he's like, fatality. I'm like, what? He's like narrating his own fucking story.
They had to put the game taglines in there for the kids, babe. For the kids.
That reminded me of that fucking Eminem song, for the kids. Like when he fucking says that.
How do you feel about Sonya's character representation in the movie?
Veronica Vaughn Sonya Blade is fucking fantastic, actually. I like Bridget Wilson a lot. She previously appeared on our podcast in our I Know What You Did Last Summer episode when she played Helen Shivers' sister.
The bitch.
She is a bitch. And she's a bitch in this movie, too, but she's like the good kind of bitch where she's a badass
bitch. Yes.
Yeah. So her constantly just fucking with Johnny Cage when like they're searching for Katana at some point, and it's kind of one of their first little group fights with a lot of like Shang Tsung's masked men, with axes and all this shit. And he's like, she's this way. He's like, are you sure you're going the right way? I know I'm going the right way. I can smell her perfume. And then they get to the fucking room, and then Sonya just takes one good look around and she goes, I smell something. Bullshit. He just walks off. He's just mocking her. It's so good. Like it's like some of the coolest choreographed fight sequences with campy peak 90s kind of sarcastic humor.
Oh, yeah.
Observational comedy and sarcasm and dryness. I love it.
I also love the trope of like one person, like when it comes to two people, one person looks at the other one with like absolute disgust and rolls her eyes every time they open their mouth, but they grow on each other. And the other one's just like a loud mouth and very vain. And it just works really, really well. And if you know anything about the storyline of the game, you know that they do eventually have a child together who becomes quite an interesting character and a perfect a perfect mishmash of both father and mother.
It's Cassie Cage, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, Cassie's great. And a lot of the reason we are deciding to talk about this movie, honestly, is because we have like a new sequel coming out to the 2021 film, which was fucking amazing. And I think the second one holds a lot of potential. I feel like the 21 film absolutely, in my opinion, like surpassed it as far as like it's good. It was more faithful, more accurate. I still think the 95 Mortal Kombat movie holds a cult classic status for a reason. And a reason being like some of the special effects, not Reptile, but
we're not talking about Reptile.
Yeah, some of the special effects still kind of hold up because let's talk about the set pieces. You did bring that up that you wanted to talk about the set pieces at one point because they're pretty fucking cool, actually.
Yeah, I love the set designs. The boat looked fucking fantastic. Let's start there since that was at the beginning of the movie. Loved the design there, the motifs with the dragons, of course. And then when they actually get to the island, which I believe they filmed on location in Thailand. Absolutely fucking gorgeous. Loved it as a centralized location for the Mortal Kombat. Inside the palace, the furniture designs, all the plated foods. I love how they have foods that are familiar, but it also looks almost alien in a way that it's like presented. I thought that was a neat little touch.
It looks like the Hook food from Hook.
Yeah, I love that because that's a favorite movie of mine.
Yeah,
so.
like they're all like when they first roll in there and they have that opening, ceremony where basically he's like, hey, here's Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero is going to just freeze kill this fucking random sweaty, muscly guy while you eat all this food that we're going to just throw on the floor. Because you were commenting, you're like, oh man, that's a waste of all that food. I was like, nah, man, that's Hook food. That's all imaginary. They're all thinking they're eating something, but they're really not. Because there's a shitload of food in this movie.
There is, and they get to eat none of it until you get to the scene with Kano sitting at the table talking to Goro, and he's just shoving this fucking greasy ass turkey leg into his mouth. First of all, he does make it look delicious. I'm not even gonna lie. But watching that bitch talk with his fucking mouth open with food spilling out of it the rest of the time,
bro. First of all, rest in peace to that dude, because so a not so fun fact, and I really mean this. So the character of Kano, I feel like he's cursed. The actor that played him in this movie passed away in 2003, and then the actor that played Kano in the Mortal Kombat Legacy web series from 2010 died as well. Like,
it's so unfortunate.
I mean, killer performances on both of them, really. The Mortal Kombat Legacy web series was fantastic, and I actually really liked Kano's character in this one. I loved him in the 21 film, though. I think that guy was really, like, on it. But this was great, all things considered, and he was such a loudmouth asshole in this, for real.
I felt like he was perfect for his character, honestly. It was a fantastic fit. He acted it very well. It came across as very natural, all things considered. And then the final fight sequence between him and Sonya was very, very good. I think, personally, for me, that is probably my favorite fight scene in the movie because it's got the most satisfying ending. Her just being like, okay, and then cracking her thighs to break his neck. Holy shit, me too.
I like that one. It seems more real, like a more grounded fight than like some martial arts ass stuff because it's a brawl. Like you got two people that are like really have it out for each other. And he's mostly just like toying with her and shit, but she's, throwing like her whole like ass and like punching him in the face and all this other stuff. But you can tell also that like Bridget Wilson is not a fighter. Like, she had to take, classes and training for this. So you could tell like by her fight stance and stuff that she's not like a traditional, which I like. The realism aspect of that. So yeah, for sure. The other stuff is very impressive, but very choreographed.
I like the way they did her choreography, even if it is like obvious on that end. I feel like when the fighting is slower like that, it makes it feel like the fight has more impact. Each individual hit, you know what I mean? They
it's
make
more
it feel
methodical.
Heavy. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about Goro, because we have all these characters and they're quite a cast of characters. Like they all have larger than life personalities, but what happens when the one character is larger than fucking life?
I feel like they did a wonderful job with, what would you call it? The costuming, the mechanisms used for
it's
the suit in general.
It's like half animatronic and half practical because the person that's walking around as the bottom of Goro like is in a suit. Like there's legs and there's the bottom two arms, but then like the top half is being, operated by mechanics. It's almost kind of like how they would do with the heads on the turtles in the Ninja Turtles movie.
And the facial expressions that they used for it and everything like that, the mechanics that they used were great. I feel like it was very expressive, especially for its time. It looked very realistic. And I actually genuinely feel like it still holds up. What do you think?
That's the beauty of practical effects is practical effects always hold up. There's no way to make, like, unless the practical effect is awful, it's hard to beat anything that's real because it's right there on screen. It's not a computer and it doesn't age. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. It must have taken a lot of skill and a lot of patience to do the choreography for Goro's fight. Oh, first of all, let's talk about the build up to Goro's fight with Johnny.
Yeah,
that scene right before that.
So they talk about how much of a threat Goro is. Like, obviously he is, like Liu Kang and Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade have vanquished a few people by this point, most notably the fight between Scorpion and Johnny Cage, which I want to talk about real quick before we get to Goro. I thought that was amazing. I thought the set piece in Hell was fucking cool.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously you can tell it's scaffolding and it's dressed pretty well, but all things considered, it looks great. The special effect where he rips the mask off and it's a skull with the flames and the way he actually like cuts through him and he's bleeding out like lava, fire and all this shit.
Sure.
It's a little nice nod to the friendship victory in the game where Johnny Cage, the friendship victory, like for those of you that have never played, I'd be shocked if you never played a Mortal Kombat game, but there are people out there that never have, so, here's an explanation. They had all types of different things, like fatalities where it was like a special kill, or they had like, a babality where they would turn you into a baby, or they had like friendship, and the friendship victory, was like something they did that was nice. It was like all these weird like codes you could punch in. But part of Johnny Cage's like fatality / like friendship ending was that he would autograph a portrait of himself and he would say, "To my greatest fan, Johnny Cage," and he would throw it at you. So when he vanquishes Scorpion, he blows up and then like they have a couple of quick camera cuts of his body parts hitting the ground and then like the autograph picture hitting the ground and catching fire. I was like, that's fucking awesome.
It is really good. And I actually didn't get that until you explained it to me because I knew about some of the finishers, the babalities, and the animalities.
Yeah.
I only am familiar with that one because of Mortal Kombat 2. Again, I'm not going to touch on that with a 10-foot pole. Yeah.
Fuck that shit.
That's a whole nother beast. No pun intended.
Yeah. But getting to Goro is fucking hilarious because they finally sit there because the Earthrealm people are winning. So Shang Tsung like rolls up and he's like, "All right, dude, all right, it's time." Pretty much tells him like, "Hey, go get him. Let's fuck up some people." And including the sequence that this all leads up to where he fights Art, who is like one of the dudes that Johnny Cage actually looks up to as well because they're both mutual admirers of one another's work, and it's a martial arts respect there.
He's like a professional fighter of some sort.
Yeah, and they're both fans of one another in their bloods or whatever. So we find out that Art has to fight Goro and unfortunately loses his life doing so. But the build up to this, Goro vanquishes no less than 20 people. And whenever we say vanquish, we mean he throws them on the fucking ground real hard. I'm talking like threw it on the ground like the Lonely Island throws it on the ground, okay?
Yeah, you were like, we need to actually count how many dudes he rolls to the ground here. And I held out my hands and we counted out each individual one. And it was 20 people getting rolled to the fucking floor. And then we made the observation after the fact that some of those were duplicate dudes as well.
Some fucking repeat offenders in that damn pile. But I'm still counting 20 because they made like 20 different cuts for this. She was like, slam, 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 all on rocks and gravel. And I'm just like, ew.
It went on for like 30, 45 seconds.
Dude, every goddamn one of those people could be entitled to cash compensation at some point or another. Like, were you injured on the job? Were you injured during Mortal Kombat?
Call Johnson & Johnson. Shit. Not sponsored, by the way.
You told him to call the Band-Aid company Johnson & Johnson? And it just, what the fuck?
The joke has landed.
Did it land as hard as those 20 people did, or what?
Oh my God, I don't think anything landed harder than those dudes. Jesus.
I don't know. Goro landed pretty fucking hard. I think he's still falling to this day, actually.
Yeah. He pulled like a piggy from Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, so it eventually leads to Shang Tsung dispatching Goro, killing all these fucking people, 21 people, including Art. And then Raiden's like, yeah, all these adversaries can be beaten in their own way. You just gotta look.
Play to their weaknesses.
Yeah, and then Johnny's just like, fuck this, I'm fighting him. Like, what? And he's like, nah, I'm gonna fight that four-armed freak. He doesn't say that, but I'm calling him four-armed freak. Not a four-armed freak, but a four-armed freak. He does have four forearms, so it's... Yeah.
He's the human centipede.
He is, man. So Johnny Cage and Goro fight, and it's probably one of my favorite lines in the whole fucking movie. First of all, he does the thing where he split crotch punches him. It's just straight out of the game. It's great shit. But before the fight starts, Goro just takes his glasses and crushes them in one of his hands. And I was just like, even as a kid,
Ray-Bans.
dude, even as a child seeing that, I was like, he broke his sunglasses. I was mad. I was like,
that's rude.
Really? I was like, he broke his fucking sunglasses? What a dick. And they eventually make it to this like cliffside, coincidentally on that high-ass mountainous looking piece of rock that they were climbing up in the beginning that he dropped all his fucking suitcases down. Anyway, Johnny Cage surprise ambush attacks him. Winds up kicking him, and he's hanging on for dear life. And then a callback to the opening sequence of Johnny Cage being on a movie set and having this stunt guy that does not know his line or does not know his spot when he's supposed to take a kick and fall to the ground. And Johnny has to remind him, this is where you fall down.
All the way down.
Dude, look, he reminds him of that, and then he tells Goro as he's hanging on with his two little fingies, his two sausages, his two Vienna sausage ass fingers.
Those fucking things are thick.
Okay, his two T-bone steak fingers.
Two T-bone steaks.
He's hanging on for dear life, and Johnny Cage just looks at him. This is where you fall down, and he does fall. And look, I think perspective is everything when you're shooting something, because not only is he falling, he's falling down, but he's falling at like a weird, like left-leaning diagonal kind of angle thing. And the way that the clouds are flowing left and right, it looks like he's falling sideways and not down, but away.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is funny looking.
It is. I remember making fun of it when we were watching. I was like, this might be one of the worst parts.
Bro just straight up went,
Oh, but that was the demise of Goro. Definitely a good fight scene.
Yeah, and that's where we get to the whole Outworld sequence where, Johnny Cage is, talking about like when because Sonya Blade gets kidnapped by Shang Tsung and he challenges her to final combat or whatever. Well, they follow him to Outworld because Raiden can't go there. And I'm just laughing at like Johnny Cage sitting there the whole time talking about like, I do not like this. I do not like this. He's like talking about all the shit that's happened to him. He's like, we're probably going to get our ass kicked. Like as they're walking through this thing, just being so pessimistic, But like, that's where we get the reptile fight. And we should also make mention of the fact that during most of these fights, all of them really, the really great music that's happening.
Oh, the soundtrack is actually so good. I was jamming out to it the whole time we were watching the movie. Even all these years later, I feel like it doesn't disappoint and it fits. I remember at one point I was like, was this a song from the actual game? And you had to tell me that no, in fact, it wasn't. And I was like, damn, could have fooled me because it just fits so goddamn well.
Yeah, it depends on it because like there's a score and then there's like the soundtrack, the music that other bands have done. So they have a motion picture soundtrack and then a motion picture score. So like the soundtrack was out on TVT Records that Most notably in the 90s housed industrial acts. Nine Inch Nails was one of its biggest acts, and then they had other bands like KMFDM and Gravity Kills. And those bands are actually featured on the soundtrack here. So you had like Fear Factory and Sister Machine Gun and Bile, Napalm Death, Typo Negative was on there. And then, of course, the Immortals, which made the Techno Syndrome song on the original 1994 Mortal Kombat, the album, which was just a bunch of music released for the video games. And then the Techno Syndrome song wound up becoming part of this film and this movie. And that's what shot that song to like infamy. We can't even hear Mortal Kombat without thinking of this song. And one fun piece of trivia here for the Goro versus Art section of this movie, Buckethead, yes, the guitar player that wears a white faceless mask with a KFC bucket on his head, who once played for Guns N' Roses briefly. And
That's
who was
weird to think about.
And he is also responsible for the Power Rangers guitar solo in the Power Rangers theme from the 1990s. Yes, this guy here did the guitar work on that piece of the score done by George S. Clinton. Amazing. I still have a CD copy of this soundtrack somewhere because you can't get it digitally. So I still actually proudly own a physical copy of that soundtrack. And I must have played that thing on repeat so much as a kid.
I never had the joy of having that one on CD, but I did watch this movie a lot with my siblings and my father growing up. So I definitely got quite an earful of it and enjoyed it every single time.
The movie ends, obviously, with the final showdown between Liu Kang and Shang Tsung. And we get this weird, like, guys, it's PG-13. That's the one thing is, like, it's a PG-13 movie in the 1990s, and they had to market this to everybody. So a rated R Mortal Kombat film in the 1990s would have been suicide at the box office.
For sure.
And I say PG-13 because at one point, the Mortal Kombat logo is on the floor of the area that they're fighting in, and eventually like spikes rise up, which is a nod to a couple of the levels in the video game where you can uppercut somebody off of a platform and they fall to their death in a spike pit. I mean, Shang Tsung ultimately meets this fate, but you don't actually see it happening. Like, you see the aftermath of it, and surprisingly, there's not a lot of blood in this movie. Now that you really look back and think about it, there is not a lot of it.
There's like little spots, like a bloody lip here, a cut in a specific place. Maybe someone spits out some blood, but that's pretty much it. You don't see any gaping wounds or anything like that.
No, it's a lot of just legitimate combat violence where, you're taking like a fist to the face and, shit like that. But all in all, it's a pretty good movie. I mean, it ends with Earthrealm winning the 10th Mortal Kombat tournament, and then they're going back home, and Shao Kahn shows up to set up the sequel of Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which really blows because, like, that sequel had, like, so much potential, and they squandered it entirely.
We could probably do a whole nother episode just on that one alone and still have so much to talk about when it comes to it, because there was so much that was executed poorly. I made a comment right at the end of that movie because you see the character in like the sky. He's like projecting himself or whatever. And I'm like, they really did not keep that design for the second one at all, which would have made the character a lot more, what's the phrase I'm looking for?
Palatable?
Palatable, yes. Because you get this like bulky, square-jawed, human-looking dude that they're working with. I actually compared the makeup job on that guy at the end of 1 to Evil Ash from Army of Darkness. The facial structure and the makeup really reminded me of that.
Look, put it to you this way. The Street Fighter 1994 movie has a higher rating on IMDb than the sequel to Mortal Kombat does. It's bad.
For me personally, I would say ultimately this one still rests at a 4 out of 5 for me. And I know that a lot of that is like my love for 90s nostalgia and shit like that and the campiness of 90s movies. But I think that it still holds up soundtrack wise with its practical effects. And I like the acting and stuff in it too. So this is definitely always going to be a favorite for me and something that I can rewatch regularly.
It is a rewatch for me. I give it like a 3 out of 5, honestly. It's not the best, but it's not awful. If you really want to get down to brass tacks about it, it is a popcorn movie, and it is laced with nostalgia, and it is still like a product of that era of fights in movies, where we had like really good like stunt coordination and really good fighting. there was like a period of time after that had come out where I didn't really care for a lot of fight scenes in movies because as much as you and I love professional wrestling, I think pro wrestling took over and took a chokehold on people around the late 90s when the Attitude Era was happening in WWE, and then Monday Night Wars with WCW and WWE were going on. A lot of movies were trying to incorporate wrestling moves into their fight sequences, and it was fucking stupid. Like, you will understand what I'm talking about when I say there was a Blade movie where that motherfucker just vertically suplexes a guy.
I do remember that, actually.
It was the dumbest shit. It's Blade. It's Wesley fucking Snipes. The dude is a martial artist, legit, and he's throwing a fucking vertical suplex. Fuck out of here, bro. It's Mortal Kombat. Kick a dude's fucking spine out of his ass or something. Anyway.
Tell us how you really feel.
I just did. Yeah, Mortal Kombat 1995 is a stellar fucking watch. Check the shit out. It's on HBO Max. The sequel's on HBO Max, but I don't want you to go fucking watch that.
We're not talking about that one.
Unless you hate yourself so badly. Don't watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
The movie that shall not be named.
That would be funny if they called it Mortal Kombat Annihilation, the movie, the game. Whatever. I don't know. However, definitely check out the 2021 Mortal Kombat film, and we can't wait for the new Mortal Kombat sequel, Mortal Kombat 2, to come out this summer. So again, it's a good time to be alive if you love video game adaptations and if you love getting better versions of those films put in theaters. It's a great time to be alive. There is a new Street Fighter coming out as well, so maybe we'll talk about the 1994 Street Fighter. There's something in the future. Maybe we'll do a video game adaptation month where we kind of like deviate from the horror shit and talk about more cult films based on that. So
it's only a matter of time before I get another live action Super Mario Brothers movie, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I would love to see that.
I still have such a fondness for that one, for the old one, but absolutely would love to see more of these in general.
I know this is a horror podcast, but maybe we could talk about the Super Mario Brothers movie because of the horrors that were involved in making that movie.
No kidding.
If you would like to see that, like, let us know. Like,
please.
Because we do primarily stick to horror and like occult, and you know, this was kind of, I wouldn't say this was a stretch, but this definitely sits in that horror fantasy kind of element as far as the video games go. But there's definitely like a darker tone to this film. So
for sure.
And with that being said, everybody, for past, present, and future episodes of Cult Macabre, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. You can leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. You can leave us a rating or leave comments on individual episodes on Spotify. And if you're listening to this episode on our YouTube channel, please consider subscribing to the channel, clicking the bell for notifications for future episodes, leaving us a like on this video, or leaving a comment down below. Any engagement helps. And if you'd like to follow us on any of our social media platforms, all of this information can be found in our Linktree link in the show notes below.
So if you'd like to join us for more of pop culture's dark side, sign the Black Book and join the cult. I'm Lee.
And I'm Richie.
We'll see you next time.